Week 10 was pretty tough for some of these teams, and some of the teams didn't do anything going into this week. We had one less undefeated team now going into this, so we only have 4 before this. Now we have 3, and we're going to only have 2 after this week's over. This is Sports Hour. As already mentioned, my bad. As already mentioned, last week we had 2 teams that were fighting, and they're both undefeated. And one of those teams did end up winning. There was a tie, although there was a tie between 2 other teams earlier in the week. But this week we've got another 2 teams that are going to be placing off and possibly and going for another possibility of a chance. 2 teams will be that were undefeated last week will not be undefeated after this week's over, unless of course that they tie. That's going to make it kind of difficult going into this week. Last week, of course, we had some interesting games that occurred on it. We did have an extra game that got moved one day earlier. But as you see, a lot of the games did go out really well. Dragons end up beating the Kings, but a pretty one-sided game, 107 to 20 to 43. And most of the games were pretty far off. There were only 2 or 3 games that were not that far off in the end. Superman and Huskies played. That was an absolute blowout. Huskies absolutely demolished them. Superman, they only scored 35 points. Being the Huskies are now at half and half. Panthers were able to also demolish the Tex, 149 points to 89, and that was happened at 11 o'clock on Monday. Now, we get to a point that some of these games were even closer than any of the other ones. Some games that were really close, like for example, the Stars and Knights game. The Stars won that game. It was a pretty close battle throughout the entire game. And the Werewolves and Dogs went back and forth all game in that game of the week. Dogs ended up winning, which meant that the Dogs are still undefeated. But there was, of course, one game that sadly didn't end in the way that a lot of people would have wanted. The Leland Cats and the Unbeatens ended up tying, and they ended up going 111 to 111. Even the Cats were favored by 30 points. That 30 points ended up being not so much of a favoritism because of the context is they still ended up tying in that game. And I should point out that that was score. And those are all those games this week. So if we are looking at the playoffs right now, Dogs are still number one. They're only team that's undefeated left in the NBL. There are still two undefeated teams in the ABL. The Stars and Warriors still undefeated. The Warriors or Wolves were undefeated prior to this. They got defeated by the Dogs this last week. What's really kind of sad is the amount of teams difference between the 8 playoffs for it. The playoffs for the NBL is all the top 8 teams those are the teams in the playoffs. Even though they're a little bit outered in a different way, with Panthers being seed number 5, even though they are the second best team. On the other side, though, you have the Stars, Warriors, Werewolves, Big Cats, but really it's just a very far on it. The Werewolves are 3 games ahead of the Pershing team that is in the 5th seed. And the team that is in the 4th seed is all the way down at 5-5. They're winning their division right now, but honestly, that could go any way going into this week. Best team number 1 in offensive is still the Panthers, and the team for defensively it's gone kind of back and forth. It was the Werewolves. It is now the Lions. The Lions are actually doing a lot better than a lot of the other teams when it comes to defensive standings. But let's get into week 11. Oh, for one thing is that you can see that the Lightning and the Supermen are both 0-10. Legends are only 1 game ahead of them. But at this point, if either the Lightning or the Supermen lose, they will be eliminated from the playoffs. Lightning or Legends could end up being eliminated from the playoffs as well. It depends on if they win or not. If they lose, they could still make it in, keep it in, depending on what happens everywhere else. All right, week 11. It's a tough week. Now, almost all the weeks are generally tough. We have our couple of games. To start off, we do have a exchange of the times for the one game on Monday. That game is actually pretty early for a lot of the games. Start off with the Giants and Colts. Giants, it's the Colts that are favored by 6. But honestly, not much of a game going into this one. This is going to be a tough one for each team. And I couldn't tell you exactly which team is going to win this game because it's going to be back and forth. But think this way, the Colts are currently leading their division. A loss will hurt them if they do end up losing this game. I'm picking looking at how the teams have functioned so far, I'm going to go with the Giants winning this game. I don't think the Colts are doing very well. And if they lose, it's over. For the Colts might not be the 1 seed, the number 4 seed. Although right now, honestly, that could go either way. We have the Tigers and the Bobcats. And this is the one thing that makes it less likely the Colts will not be still number 4 seed in their division, because the Tigers are the team they're playing against, and the Tigers are not favored by a lot, but they're a lot better than the Bobcats. Bobcats right now 19-24 versus The Tigers, who are currently in first in their division at 23-8. But they're both pretty bad teams when it comes to the context of facing each other. I don't like this. I'm going to go with the Bobcats winning this week because sure the Tigers are leading their division, but I don't think it's going to mean much of a difference at the game in time. We got the Hawks and the Techs 10 o'clock. Hawks are favored by 3. It's a tough one. Looking at the Techs are all the way down here in 4th, but they're tied with 3 other teams. They're not good in this point in time. The other thing is the Hawks. The Hawks aren't good either. So, but they're slightly better, I think, comes down to it. I'm going to give the Hawks the victory here, winning this one by just a few points. We have a UNC and Ravens game. UNC is doing better now than they had been doing, but they're still pretty far off. But the Ravens are not doing much better. Ravens are 27-31 versus UNC, who's 20-14. I'm giving UNC the victory here, mostly because it just doesn't appear that there's much of a chance that the Ravens are going to be able to beat UNC. I think earlier in the season, the Ravens would easily demolish them, but they're just kind of falling apart at this point. So I'm going to go with UNC winning this game. On Monday, 9 o'clock, earliest game of the season, Dolphins and Foxes. It's a tough one because the Dolphins are last currently. They're 32-16. They're actually better than their defense of standpoints, but they do play against the Foxes, who are not doing well at all either. But they're better in most cases. I don't like either one of these teams. I think both these teams are going to be awful. I'm giving the Foxes the win here, but I won't be surprised if the Dolphins end up coming and surprising us again. They've been surprised us the last couple of weeks. Dolphins did beat the Colts pretty badly, and the Dolphins did beat the Lynx pretty badly. The Foxes are going to be one of those teams that's going to be tough. I'm going to go with the Foxes, but I think I'm taking that back. I'm going to go with the Dolphins winning this game. I think the Dolphins are doing a lot better than the Foxes are right now. Foxes are kind of falling apart, and I think it's going to be that way. All right, Packers and Leland Cats. Leland Cats kind of fell apart this last week. Even though the Cats are favored by 15. I'm giving the Packers the win here. Packers are doing a lot better more recently. Looking at how the Packers are currently 30-12. They're a lot better in defense when it comes to the facts here. As for the Cats, they're kind of falling apart. They were They were actually winning the majority of that game. The Cats were winning up until probably the third, fourth quarter, and then they fell apart. Their offensive position is what kind of makes it difficult for me. I don't like to go against the Cats in this case, but I'm going to go with the Packers winning this game. Bears and Jets shouldn't be a contest. Jets should win that game, no problem. Jets did get a surprising. The Bears did get a surprising win this last week. But let's see. The Bears faced off against the Indians. The Indians are still down players. I don't think the Indians are doing very well for the context for that. So I'm going to give the Jets the win here. I think if it had been any other team, I could see the Bears coming back and winning that game. But honestly, I'm not really seeing that much off this one. We got the Beagles and the Legends. Beagles are going to win this game. And the problem is, by doing that, that likely eliminates the Legends from the playoff possibility. We are getting close to a point where teams could be eliminated from the playoffs if they don't win this week. We got the Lynx and the Browns. Lynx kind of fell apart last week, and they're probably not going to be able to beat the Browns off the context. Their Browns are just too good when it comes to it. Browns, at this point in time, are 12 and 18 versus the Lynx, who are pretty bad. Even though they got a really good defense, I think honestly the offensive is going to shut them down at the end. I think the Browns are going to do a lot better. Warriors and Saints, tough game. It's not really. Warriors should win that game, no problem. This is another game. This is a game that's going to be tough. I think I may. The Falcons are 18-82 too as well. Could have easily been a game of the week if it wasn't for another game that occurs. This game could go either way for me. And I'm going to give the Dragons the win here. I think it's going to be a very close game. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like 3 points between these two teams, even though the Dragons are favored by 18. I think it's going to be a very close game. Pirates and Athens. Athens came back and were able to tie the game. They're one of the few teams, though, that have actually had the capability of doing that. Pirates are just not really showing up much. I'm going to go with the Athens winning this game. Kings and Lightning, the Kings win that game. And if the Kings do win that game, the Lightning will be eliminated from the playoffs. No questions asked. Bulldogs and Panthers. Bears win that game. It's too far apart. Bulldogs are going to be a good fight in that game. I will say that much. But it's not going to be good enough in that game. The Knights and the Chargers could be a pretty close game battling. I'm giving the Knights the win here. But again, I can see that game going either way. Superman and the Legends gave me the Lions. Gave me the Lions winning that game. I don't see the Superman being able to come back and win any of these games, going into the point that they're one of the worst teams. But it comes down to the fact is, if the Supermen also lose, they're also eliminated from the playoffs. And we'll get to that more going into next week. I think it starts week 2. We're going to start seeing some clinches. I think next week, not this week, but next week, we'll probably see some close to clinches at that point. Huskies and the Cardinals, I would love to see the Cardinals come back and win this game. Cardinals do have a few games ahead of some of these teams when it comes to it, but they're not doing well enough to beat the Huskies. Huskies are kind of right now. Cardinals are even less so I'm going to give the Huskies the win, but Cardinals could come back and win that game. Otters and Angels give me the Otters winning this game by like 1 point. Honestly, I think that's how close it's going to be. We'll get back to the Stars and Dogs game in a second. Werewolves and Indians. Werewolves are going to win that game by a landslide. Probably going to be like a 140 points. It's not going to be close. Stars and Dogs is the toughest game by landslide. These are teams that are first in their leagues. Dogs are 10-0, and the Stars are 10-0. This could easily be the matchup that happens in the playoffs for the NBL. In my opinion, this could go either way, and I love this. The thing is about the Dogs. The Dogs have a really good offense. They don't have such great defense. When it comes to it, they're allowing a lot of points to be scored on, versus the Stars, who have basically the same parameters, but they're better in defense. And this is the reason I was going to say it's going to be a tough game for me. while I feel like there is a good chance to the Stars on it, the Stars do have one problem. They can't hold on. They always seem to fall out in the fourth quarter, and the Dogs say the best in the fourth quarter. I'm getting the Dogs to win in that one. That is it for this week. We'll have the Dogs and Stars face off this week, and this is going to be a very tough week. I'll see you for week 12, and we'll see what happens. And we'll see if we go out which team is still undefeated. We'll still have one undefeated team after this, assuming that the Warriors win as well. See you week 12.